Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I learned a lot of things along the way that helps me some tools to try to navigate through dealing with a child with behavioral issues and who's on the spectrum.
What did you think when you first heard that Mad to Glad could possibly teach you some ways to calm challenging behaviors? Because you're a seasoned parent, it's not your first time around the block.
Yes, I was apprehensive at first as a parent. You think we have the tools and we're to cope and navigate through parenthood, but it's actually not one size fits all for each child. And it's especially not a one size fits all journey with a child with autism or special needs. So I was cautious going into it just because you think you already know, what there is to know. But I was actually surprised by how much information that we went through and that was provided throughout the course.
What were some of the good surprises for you that were also effective?
We had our one-on-one discussions, like when you actually took the time to listen and just had that difficult conversation of probing, okay, so you're doing these things, but what is he doing? What is your reaction? And so allowing me to see where there might be some room for growth and just getting to the deeper issue of what was actually going on. It was uncomfortable a little bit, but at the same time, it helped me to realize what I was doing wrong and what might have been some of his triggers and how to avoid them, how to navigate through those.
For parents who are in similar shoes where they feel like they've paid close attention to their child and their triggers, what kind of advice would you want them to hear from you? What kind of triggers might they want to pay attention to that you realized?
I think the biggest takeaway for me was to just be quiet and listen to what he was saying. Even though he was having those outbursts, just take a moment and listen and say, that kind of sucks. School isn't fun, but that's something that we have to continue to do every day. How are we going to navigate through that? Explaining to him the process every day that school is something that we're going to have to do. And I understand that you're upset about it, but in just listening, I think there was, like you said, that aha moment where he's just, I feel validated.
It's such an interesting topic to explore because we listen to our kids and and I know you, right? You spend a lot of time with your son and you're paying attention to see what you can do to make life better for him and make life better for all of you in the family. What was a sign that you listening to him in this deeper way was working?
I saw the light bulb go on, like the
Mhm.
aha moment when he was having one of those behavioral outbursts. We have some wins and some losses. When he is having that fire in the brain, recognizing it or making sure I'm calm and then making sure that he's in a calm state as well.
There's a lot of places for kids to get support, right? There's school counselors. What other kinds of practitioners? Occupational therapists? Anybody else your family's worked with?
Physical therapists.
Yeah, and then at school we've got social skills specialists and like all these places for kids to go. What was unique about being part of the Mad to Glad parenting community and having a space where there are other families sharing some of their challenges and breakthroughs?
I think that hearing other people sharing their experiences with their children, it makes you feel like you're not alone because sometimes as a parent, when we think that the situation is unique to us, hearing that other people are going through it doesn't feel so isolating. Like for me, it was like taking mental notes. Okay, yeah, that I see similarities. So this is something that just children do, and they might just process things a little differently.
I love that about parenting communities. Sometimes parent groups can devolve pretty quickly into like sharing frustrations. And
Yes.
and so here at Mad to Glad, we're really focused on what was the growth or what was the awareness. It's winter in Minnesota right now, so there tend to be a little bit more illnesses. And whenever somebody in the family gets sick, if they pass it to the other person, the whole family rhythm can feel really bogged down for a month before you feel like you're coming up for air again. In the Mad to Glad community, there's always shares about how we might be able to take a step forward and knowing there's no rush. Like we're not missing out. Regular life can happen. There are more pieces of the puzzle. When you think about how you feel as a parent by walking alongside other parents, Are there any other takeaways on how parenting feels now with that heart knowledge, but also the tool knowledge that you learned about calming some behaviors?
I think when we share as a group, we tend to have more compassion for each other and also maybe our children. So for me, I had more compassion for other people who have gone through some similar things, but maybe there's situations a little bit different, but it helps me look at it a different perspective. In addition to that, I would say for the head knowledge that I've gained, I would say that being able to correlate the two, taking the knowledge and the tools that we've learned with the worksheets and the lessons, being able to identify those challenging behaviors, or for me, it was more or less recognizing what I was doing wrong, and that was huge.
Yeah, and can you speak to that? Because I feel like that's so humbling when we recognize it ourselves. Because clearly, I'm not teaching from an angle of, by the way, XYZ is not the right thing to do. How was that process? How, for somebody who's listening to like, how did you know what you were doing wrong?
I learned very quickly from, I know you had another guest speaker on.
Oh,
She
that's
would
okay.
explain sometimes she would just leave the store and it's okay to just leave the store and that's enough. I would try to endure in the store and try to bargain. We had a conversation like, okay, so you're bribing. And then it was like, okay, so I'm not supposed to bribe them. um, and so now, yeah, that's hard to unlearn right now for me. But I knew that pretty fast. Okay, so we're not bribing. And the other takeaway is more or less getting escalated sometimes when staying calm, but at the same time, noticing that I'm speaking over him and maybe like my physical body isn't upset, but then I'm trying to get my point across. No, and saying no a lot, and that could be defensive when I'm saying no all the time. So
Yeah, nice. And how did that feel to your mother's heart when you realized some things that you were doing were maybe contributing negatively to the situation? And know that I'm asking that question because I'm always sensitive to parents because we can go in the shame and guilt spiral really quickly. So could you speak
okay.
to that? Did you feel like some of hearing other people's stories or us talking about the tool, did you feel like it ever brought you into that negative self-talk spiral, or was it a different way that caused you to have growth and feel uplifted?
For me, I look at it as like an opportunity for growth. Like I feel like we grow up learning something one way and you have to unlearn what we've seen or what may work for one child and what may not work for another child.
Mm.
I would say with my child that I'm speaking about, it's very unique. My parenting style is very unique to him in needing help and humbling myself and recognizing that I need help learning those things. I didn't necessarily have the negative self-talk. It's more or less I would accept the challenge and try to incorporate the strategies and look at it in a positive light.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I feel like it's so lovely to call out that the community we create is full of parents like you who are looking at
Mhm,
the growth opportunity. And I think a lot of people come into
mhm.
the program having some skepticism or hesitation because none of us like to be bossed and told what to do. And yet, the way that we navigate this is we lean into child development and brain science and story
Yeah,
examples so that we can recognize for ourselves, are we moving on a path that feels good to us or not? If you think back to when you first started this journey at the beginning of our 6 months together, what has been one thing that you've found a solution for?
it's still a work in progress, but redirecting and understanding his brain makeup, I think that's mostly what it is, educating yourself and understanding that it's certain things are sensory issues. Certain things cause the brain to work in a specific way. Realizing that helped me when I redirect him to just have a lot more patience versus getting up for school. Instead of looking at it like, okay, this is going to be a constant reoccurring event, just understand that this is how his brain works and it's just going to be that. And redirecting is going to be easy some days, and some days it's not. Allowing myself that grace to be present in that day helps a lot.
Allowing that grace for yourself, your child, and the
Yes.
circumstance. I feel like that needs to be clear to us as parents. When is this a parenting issue? When is this my child's temperament or brain wiring? And when is this something totally different? This is a sensory concern. So if things are unfolding in a tough way, we don't have to blame ourselves or our kid. We can understand.
This isn't something that he's doing on purpose. When you're educated on how the brain works and it's not purposeful, it might be some components of acting out, but just understanding that chemistry, makeup in the brain. For
Nice.
me, you hear this psychology behind it, but putting it into practice is where you really start to grow.
What was most valuable about this for you?
For me, it's always been someone being very candid and open about their parenting experiences. I feel sometimes that we have shame. We feel we're not so forthcoming as parents about our child that might be a little bit more challenging to deal with. I'll give an example. You'll see the kids in the store like having the meltdowns and the breakdowns, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad it's not my child today. And having compassion for them instead of judging, because I feel like when we have a posture of compassion, we start to understand each other and we're more open and honest about what's going on. Having a platform to be candid with what's going on helps. And I feel like that was one of the greatest takeaways that I've had, knowing that I'm not the only one. Parents out here who are facing similar challenges, different, but similar, trying to navigate through this one day at a time.
If you had any message of hope for families who are listening and wondering, I'm in a tough spot. Should I move forward and take a program like this? What might you say to them?
I would say go for it. The more you get a lot out of it when you open up to people. I would just say that it's uncomfortable, but once you get through, when you're open and you're honest about yourself and what's going on with your child, and like opening yourself up to being vulnerable, I think that's when you learn the most. When you have the opportunity to be vulnerable, I encourage someone else to do the same thing.
And then it encourages you in return to stay connected because it can be such an isolating experience in our country, especially where we live apart. We live in apartments. And so being in a space where we can
Yeah.
explore our parenting and our feelings and our kids' behavior and their feelings and put all of those together, we get more complete support. I'm curious, you're finishing school soon. Does any of
Yeah.
what you learned impact the degree you're getting?
I would say that I have a lot more patience trying to navigate through everything. Sometimes you feel like this refining process in your life, navigating through multiple things, and it forces you to just sit and just say, okay, we're doing everything right now, and let's see how we can, handle multiple projects or navigate through multiple things going on in your life, and each taking equal amount of priority. That and patience. Well, I thought I had patience before, but then I was forced to see where there was more room for improvement. Again, it's humbling when you turn that mirror back and you're like, okay, so there is more opportunity for growth in this area.
Yeah, I love it. It's funny that you said the word forced. I was forced to turn the mirror. I always say invited.
Sometimes you're overwhelmed and you can't take it on. It's, I have too much going on. This is not going to be conducive to my schedule. I think that it's helped me to finish stronger. I have two more classes and I'm finished.
Yeah,
Thank you.
beautiful. Thank you for sharing part of your story here. I know other families will find it valuable.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Mm,
It's been good. I would
yeah,
encourage other parents to take the plunge, take the risk. I think it's worth the payoff in the end.
thank you.